Okay, طيب. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalam ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wasallam. Wa ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika la wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluhu. Sallallahu alayhi wa ala alihi wa sallam. Naam. So from this slide, statements of the Imams against Taqleed. So here we see the definition of this word Taqleed. We've already discussed in the previous classes the different madhahib, okay? Madhahib meaning schools of Islamic law, or schools, or what people call schools of fiqh. Fiqh, we loosely translate as jurisprudence or practical Islamic laws, okay? And so there were different schools that developed based upon different geographical situations and also in following certain outstanding scholars who mastered or who were considered masters or leaders in this field of science, this study, fiqh, okay? We talked about, for those of you all who weren't here in the previous class, we talked about that Islam, is the laws of Islam are contained in the Sharia. Sharia, this word Sharia, it means all of the laws that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has revealed about three particular areas. One, laws regarding aqeedah, so we call those al-ahkam al-i'tiqadiyya, laws regarding beliefs, okay, what we believe in. Then there's al-ahkam al-akhlaqiyya, laws regarding character and virtues and manners, morals, okay? And then there's al-ahkam al-amaliyya, the laws dealing with transactions, actions, okay? And this al-ahkam al-amaliyya, this deals with al-ibadat, acts of worship, wal-mu'amalat, and business dealings, transactions between people, okay? That third category, that is also called al-ahkam al-fiqhiyya, or fiqh, okay? So Sharia is broad. It includes what we believe in, it includes our morals and behaviors and manners and so forth, okay? Not to lie, not to cheat, to be honest and so forth, all of that. And it also deals with laws about how to pray, how to fast, how to perform hajj, how is marriage and divorce dealt with, the laws of that, contracts and business. All of that is under this broad umbrella called Sharia, okay? And the sources of Sharia we talked about of the Quran and the authentic Sunnah, meaning the authentic hadith of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, and the understanding of the Salaf, meaning what the Sahaba and their students understood from Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. And those are the main sources. And then there are secondary sources like culture and other things that the scholars would consider, okay, for these laws. But that's Sharia. So Sharia, like I said, is divided into three categories of laws. Laws regarding beliefs, laws regarding morals and manners, and laws regarding acts of worship and transactions between people, okay? So that last category that I just said, laws regarding transactions between people and also acts of worship and so forth, ritual acts of worship, that is fiqh. That's the subject called fiqh. And that's what this class, what we're dealing with, okay? All right, we already dealt with aqeedah in the first part of this class, okay? That was what the first part of the class was about, okay? Aqeedah, beliefs. So, and we're not dealing with al-akhlaq, even though there are books that the scholars have written about, fiqh al-akhlaq and so forth like this, tazkiyat al-nafs and things like that. But what we're dealing with is the fiqh regarding laws regarding acts of worship and transactions between people, okay? That's what the fiqh is involving or deals with, okay? So now, when we talk about, so we said different scholars, great scholars became prominent, they became well known and famous, okay, for mastering this science and teaching it to others in the history of Islam, okay? Going all the way back centuries, okay? So those people became called a'imma. A'imma is the plural of imam, okay? Imam means a leader, okay? So in this sense, when we say imam, we don't mean he's the imam of a masjid, he leads the people in salat. It means he's an imam in this science. He's a leader in the field, okay? He's one of the great scholars of this field, okay? So these a'immatul fiqh, or we call them fuqaha, these jurists or imams of fiqh, they developed schools, okay? Not necessarily that they built a building and named it after themselves, but just people gathered around them in their areas. Some of them might have been in Baghdad, in Iraq, in Kufa, in Iraq, or some of them might have been in the Hijaz, in Mecca or Medina. Some of them might have been in the Sham, Damascus, Syria, Damascus. Some of them might have been in Egypt. But there were different parts of the Muslim world, in Yemen, etc. That these people, certain prominent people, rose or stood out and rose above others in this field, and the students gathered around them, and so that those people who learned from them and what they wrote or what they taught, that became their school. And the people who followed their school, these were the people who were considered students of that madhhab, okay? Madhhab literally means the way you go about something, okay? It comes from the word dhahaba. Dhahaba is a past tense verb in Arabic which means he went, okay? Yadhabu means he is going. Dhihab means to go. Madhhab means the way you go about something, okay? Dhahaba yadhabu dhihaban. Dhahaba, he went. Yadhabu, he is going. Dhihaban, going about something. Madhhab is the way you take to go somewhere, okay? To get somewhere. That's literally what madhhab means, all right? It's a noun that's derived from that verb, dhahaba, all right? So you had a question? I thought I saw your, oh, you taking your glasses off. I thought your hand, I have to watch as a question. Okay, so that's what a madhhab is, a school. So now when we're talking about the specific, in the technical terminology of fiqh, it means a school of Islamic jurisprudence, a school of Islamic fiqh, okay? And it's based upon the views of that particular scholar who was the leader of that particular madhhab, okay? So what taqleed means the blind following of a particular madhhab. When someone blindly follows a particular madhhab, they choose one of these schools, one of these imams and his school of thought and his understanding and what he wrote or what he taught, particularly about fiqh, and they say, I'm going to follow only the rules and regulations that are found in this particular school about all these areas of fiqh that we talked about, acts of worship and transactions. That's what we're talking about, fiqh, okay? So I'm going to follow whatever was decided or determined to be correct, or the opinion or view of this particular imam and what is found in his school of fiqh, jurisprudence, Islamic law, okay? So that is called taqleed when someone blindly follows like that. Taqleed comes from the word qallada yuqallidu. Qallada is a verb which means to place something on your neck, okay? It comes from this word qilada. Qilada in Arabic means something a noose or a fetter that one puts around one's neck, okay? And in Lisan al-Arab is one of the most classical Arabic dictionaries that was written many centuries ago. Lisan al-Arab it says, qilada ini ma ju'ila fil unuq, is that which placed around the neck. Lil insan, for a human being, aw al kalb, or a dog, aw al badana, or a animal, or like this, or a livestock animal or something like this. And it said, lituhda bihi, so that you can be pulled, so that the animal, al-badana, this animal, livestock animal, can be led, a horse, or it said, or al-farasa, al-fars, a horse. So it can be something that's put on the neck of a human being, which would be like a slave, okay? Like if someone has a slave, like slavery, I don't know if you all know about slavery in America and the depictions of the slaves, you see chains around their neck. And sometimes you may even have in the pictures the master pulling the slave with the chain around his neck. That's qilada, okay? Also, it can be put around the neck of a horse or a mule or a cow or whatever. To pull it will lead the animal where you want it to go. This qilada, okay? Taqleed means to place that on that animal or that person's neck. That's what taqleed comes from the word qilada, okay? The verb for it is qallada, which means he placed this thing on his neck. Yuqallidu, he is placing something on his neck. Taqleed is the masdar, the verbal noun that comes from that verb, qallada, yuqallidu, okay? So it means to place a fetter around your neck and let this person just drag you with it. You're going to chain yourself to this person and let him just pull you blindly and lead you wherever he wants to lead you. That's what taqleed means. That's literally what it means, all right? So regarding these, there's something that's called al-a'immatul arba. Okay, we discussed probably about maybe 10 imams, 10 imams of fiqh previously, and they weren't the only ones, but they're just ones that stood out in the history, and we just mentioned them by way of example to discuss something of the history of fiqh and these imams, okay? But of those that we've mentioned, 4 of them are famously titled the 4 imams, or the 4 great imams. And it's talking about imams of fiqh, okay? And when people use this term amongst the Sunni Muslims, because the Shiites, when they say imam, it means something else, and they're referring to some other people, okay? We're talking about people of Ahlus-Sunnah, the people who follow Ahlus-Sunnah wal Jama'ah, the Sunnah of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ and the understanding of the companions in the first generations, Ahlus-Sunnah wal Jama'ah, not the Shiites, okay? Amongst the Sunni Muslims, we'll say, when this term, the 4 imams or the 4 great imams is used, it's referring to An-Nu'man ibn Thabit Abu Hanifa, okay? Famously known as Abu Hanifa. We talked about him, okay? He was from Iraq, okay? He was Persian, all right? He was the earliest of them. And it also, the second would be Malik ibn Anas. Malik ibn Anas was known as the Imam of Medina, the great scholar of Medina, because he was born there and he lived his life there and he stayed there and he based his school of Islamic jurisprudence upon the actions of the people that were there in Medina, because his grandfather was one of the companions of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So he's living like in the second, generation, second, third, in between second, third generation after the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So he wasn't too far removed from the Prophet Muhammad and the Sahaba. Okay, so he said, well, this is the city that the Prophet lived in, and the Prophet died in this city, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Okay, and many of his companions were here living in the city, and so what they were doing, they typically, and it's close to their time, we're only like a generation and a half removed from their time. So typically what I see the people doing, if I don't see something from the Quran or the Sunnah specifically about something, then I'm going to look and see what are the people in Medina doing. And he used that as a source of his law and his madhhab, okay? A source for deriving laws. If he didn't see something clear in the Quran and authentic hadiths, and he had to make a decision about something that he didn't see a clear ruling in the hadith or in the Quran, then he would look and see, what are Ahl Medina, the people of Medina, what are they doing, okay? And he would make a ruling leaning towards what they were doing, because he said, hey, they're close to the time of the Prophet, and the Prophet lived here, and they wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't acceptable in the time of the Prophet's companions, So he used that as a source of law. That's Malik ibn Anas. He was the second in order of, I'm going in sequence of time of these Imams. And the next was Muhammad ibn Idris Ash-Shaafi'ee, famously known as Al-Imaam Ash-Shawkaanee. Okay? Imam Ash-Shaafi'ee, he was Palestinian. He was really originally from Gaza. Gaza is, people call it Gaza. In English they say Gaza. Arabic is Gaza. Okay? He was from there, and he moved with his family to the Hijaz, Saudi Arabia, what's Arabia now, and he grew up there. And he studied Islam there. He was living there in Mecca, and then he went to Medina. He actually studied under Imam Malik. He studied fiqh under Imam Malik in Medina as a youth, as a young boy, okay, growing up. Then eventually he migrated to Iraq. He went to Iraq, to Baghdad, to Kufa, and he was studying under the students of Abu Hanifa, okay. Abu Hanifa had passed, but he was studying under Abu Hanifa's students. Then he left from there, and then he went to Egypt, and he was looking to study under another great scholar who was named Layth ibn Sa'd, who we talked about a couple of weeks ago. But when he arrived, Layth ibn Sa'd had passed, rahimahullah, he was deceased. So he studied Layth's madhhab from his Layth students, okay? And so Imam Shafi'i was a traveler. Of all of these Imams, he was the one who was the most traveled. He would travel around seeking knowledge like that, okay? And his madhhab, therefore his madhhab changed a lot over the years, over his lifetime, okay? There were rulings that he made earlier in his madhhab in teaching fiqh that later in his life, he made a different ruling and opposed that ruling based upon information that he received later throughout his travels, So his madhhab was always developing like this, all right? So that's Muhammad ibn Idris Ash-Shafi'ee, okay? And then the last of them in succession was Ahmed ibn Hanbal. Ahmed ibn Hanbal, Abu Abdullah Ahmed ibn Hanbal was a student of Imam Shafi'i. He was a student of Imam Shafi'i, okay? And he was, of all of them, he was considered the most devoted or dedicated to hadith sciences. He was considered more dedicated to hadith sciences, okay? He was a muhaddith in the most intense meaning of the word. Okay, he devoted a lot of his studies and his time into collecting chains of narration of hadith and memorizing hadiths of the Prophet ﷺ and learning information about the rijal. We call it ilm al-rijal, the knowledge of the narrators. Who are the narrators? Who was each person in the chain of narration back to the Prophet? He would go around getting information about each person. What do you know about this person? What do you know about that person? And even the people in his time, he would do what's called jarh and ta'dil, which is that he would critique the narrators who were living in his time, because people were still narrating hadith in his time, okay? So he would critique those people in his time, okay? Is this person, is his memory strong? Is he known to be scholarly? Is this person, was he weak in his memory? What was his character like? Was he a person who was narrating hadith, but he was also known to drink alcohol and stuff like that? He would write down and all that stuff and talk about it, okay, in his books, all right? And he was the one who collected the largest collection of hadith, which is called Al-Musnad, okay, famously known as Musnad Ahmed, okay? This hadith has over 30,000 hadiths in it, okay? It's the largest collection of hadith that exists amongst the Muslims, all right? So, but he also was a faqih, a scholar of jurisprudence, and so he had students who followed him in his understanding of fiqh and his I guess judgments, rulings that he made regarding fiqh, okay? He had a school of people who followed him in his rulings that he made in fiqh issues, okay? So those four that I just mentioned, those are known as Al-A'immatul Arba, the four great Imams, and we're talking about of jurisprudence, Islamic fiqh, okay? So just I have a note here that during a historical period of stagnation in Islamic knowledge, Sunni Muslims began spreading the idea that it was obligatory for each person to rigidly follow one of the fiqh schools of these 4 Imams. So today, if you hear someone who's a Sunni Muslim saying that you must follow a madhab, you may hear this from some people. They say you must follow a madhab, or they will ask you, what madhab do you follow? Okay. As a new Muslim, you may not hear this as much, or you may. You know, I remember when I was a newer Muslim, eventually, after I had been practicing Islam for maybe a year or 2, I started hearing people would ask me, what madhab do you follow? You know, and so that was, that was kind of strange to me. I was like, what do you mean? What madhab do I? What is that? You know, and so I thought we were supposed to follow Quran and Sunnah. You know, what is a madhab? You know, and so then, oh, you brother, you have to pick one of the 4. You know, like one of the 4 what? You know, one of the 4 madhab, 4 schools. You didn't know about this? You have to, oh, your Islam is deficient, or, you know, something's wrong. You have to pick one of the 4 Imams, you know. And so this was an idea that began spreading. How many of these are certificates? Okay. Oh, yeah. All right. Okay, sure. I appreciate it. I'll give the pen back to you. All right. So this is what developed. This is something that happened during a period, as I said, a period of stagnation in Islamic knowledge in the past. And basically, what happened, there was a lot of political things behind it in different areas of the Muslim state. That the rulers wanted to control the people. Okay, and they felt it was that there must be a state madhab. Okay, and this would kind of help keep people in line and keep everyone under one accord. Or let's say if we're in a certain area, we want everybody to be following the rules like this, you know, so that we don't have people, contradicting each other with differences of opinion. Like, look, okay, we're going to follow this madhab for this particular area, for Syria, or for Egypt, or for whatever. There became a state madhab type thing. And so what happened was, as we talked about the week before last, there were many Imams of fiqh. There weren't just 4, and some of the ones that that are not included in this list of 4 Imams, their contemporaries said they were more knowledgeable than these 4. Like Layth ibn Sa'd and Sufyan al-Thawri, etc. Some of their contemporaries would praise them and gave them more commendation regarding their knowledge in the area of fiqh than some of these 4 Imams. But those madhabs died out because their students didn't preserve them, or their books were lost or destroyed, and things like this, and so forth. And also, like I said, different political things going on and social things that were going on historically. All right, and so those madhahib, which is plural of madhab, didn't survive, or didn't become as prominent as these 4. Okay. So this is what you had developed. So basically, people started claiming that the door of ijtihad is closed. This was the terminology they would say. The door of ijtihad is closed. Ijtihad means that a mujtahid is a scholar of fiqh, or a scholar of Islam who has mastered sciences, including fiqh and hadith and Quranic sciences and so forth like this. And the knowledges of the Islamic Sharia, Islamic law, they've mastered these sciences, and they now are considered qualified to make what's called ijtihad. Okay, ijtihad means that this is a scholar who's qualified to look into the text of the Quran and the Sunnah and the Arabic language and deduce rulings from that which is not apparently clear. Okay, maybe something is not clear about a subject, or there's no precedence for this particular issue that happened. Okay, so a mujtahid, a scholar who is a mujtahid, who has the qualifications and the background of Islamic knowledge to look at the text of the Quran and the Sunnah and the statements and the understandings of the Sahaba, and look into the Arabic language and look at all these things collectively, and look at the maqasid, what we call maqasid al-Sharia. What are the goals of the Islamic law? What does Islam want? Even though there's nothing like this particular thing that happened prior to it in the past, this is something new. But now looking at this, based upon what I see in the information in the Islamic law, and what is intended and what is the goals that Allah wants for us in Islam, the maqasid. Maqasid comes from maqsad, which means the goals. What is Allah? What is the as they say, the spirit of the law? What is the reasons behind the revelation of certain things or certain rules? They would look into those things and extract a conclusion and come to a conclusion, extract principles and laws and come to a conclusion about this particular issue, all right, this mas'ala, this particular issue, okay? That's called ijtihad, okay? Ijtihad comes from the same word that we get juhud and jihad, which means struggle, effort, to exert effort, okay? Mujtahid, yani ijtahada yajtahidu ijtihadan, means that this person made a lot of effort, okay, to try to figure out what is right and then to make a conclusive ruling about this particular thing, okay? So what happened is in the history of Islam, these people, the Sunni Muslims in the history of the Ahlus-Sunnah, during a period of, like I said, stagnation in seeking knowledge, they said, look, the doors of ijtihad are closed. No one is allowed to make any new rulings about any new thing that comes along. You're only supposed to look into the madhhabs, the four Imams. You're supposed to pick one of them, firstly, and what is found in that madhhab, that's what you're supposed to go by, and it's not allowed to make any other rulings outside of that, what is found in one of those madhhabs, okay? And this is something that, of course, there was no precedence for that, okay? That was really, it's a bid'ah, it was an innovation for them to be saying this, okay? And as a matter of fact, the author of our book that we're going to be going through, Al-Imaam Ash-Shawkaanee, was very harsh against Taqleed and this type of idea that ijtihad, the door of ijtihad is closed. You know, he wrote a lot about that and refuted the concepts of the people that were spreading in his time about this thing of that you have to pick one of the four Imams and no one's allowed to make ijtihad. He's like, there's no dalil for this. This is not something that Allah revealed. You know, everyone is allowed to think and try to excel in Islam to the best of his ability and make rulings based upon and act based upon what he sees as correct, not to blindly follow anyone. Other than Allah and His Messenger. So that's. Going to the next slide, that's just a brief background about Taqleed and ijtihad and these things and these al-a'immat al-arba. So next we have some statements of these Imams against Taqleed, okay, proving that these a'immat al-arba, these four Imams themselves, they did not promote, nor did they encourage, nor did they suggest to anyone that people should blindly follow their rulings and their opinions. The first of those statements is a statement, because the earliest of them was Abu Hanifa, is a statement from him, where he said, it is forbidden for anyone who does not know my proofs, anyone who does not know my adillah, my evidences, to make a ruling according to my statements, according to my statements. For verily we are only humans. He said, he's talking about the Imams. He said, we are only humans. We may say something today and reject it tomorrow. Meaning I may have an opinion today, and later on tomorrow, if I see that opinion was wrong, I will change it. So it's not permissible, he said, for anyone especially, he says, who does not know my proofs. And one of the things that we mentioned previously, that the author of the book that we were discussing, Al-Madh-hab lid-dirasat al-Shari'ah al-Islamiyya, he said in describing fiqh, he said that fiqh is, in talking about fiqh, he said, in giving the definition of it, he said that it is only fiqh is only that knowledge that is derived from seeking evidences, okay? He says, is only that knowledge and those laws that are derived from seeking evidences. So he says, thus the knowledge of those who blindly follow, those who make taqleed, rules of particular schools of Islamic law, that he said, then that is not considered fiqh, because they do not seek evidences for what they follow. They're just blindly following something that somebody else said, halal, haram, mustahab, mandub, mubah. They're just blindly following, in the book it said it's halal, in the book it says it's haram, in the book it said it's fard. Here in the book it said, see brother, here's my proof, the book said it's wajib. That's not a proof. A proof is Allah said, the Prophet said, the Sahaba understood. That's dalil. Not, well, in the book here it says wajib. That's not a proof. That's not an evidence. Just because the book says fard, brother, right here, that's my dalil. That's not a dalil. Dalil is qala Allah, wa qala rasuluhu, wa qala sahabatuhu, radiyallahu anhu. Okay.
Right now they don't have anybody that can teach the proper way.
Oh yeah, there are people who are teaching the proper way. I'm not, but
in terms of, for example, people that come from Pakistan follow Hanafis, Malaysia follows
Shafi'ee, yeah.
Algeria, Malikis,
yeah.
And then when they come out, like in here, there is a big fight, arguments.
Because back home we do it like this, yeah, that type of thing, yeah.
So in this way.
Well, I think probably in all of those countries you named, yes, that's the history has developed such that in Malaysia, maybe the people are Shafi'is, just like in Somalia, or in Pakistan or India, they're Hanafis, the Ahnaf, okay? And what did you say? You said Algeria, Al-Jazair, they follow the Malik. In Morocco, they follow the Maliki Madhhab. That's true, because historically things have developed that way.
Because the government paid Imams, and they can only do that.
That's how they're encouraged to teach like that, and that's the state, like I said, the state madhhab. However, I can say this, that is not the only. I don't want you all to think that if you meet somebody from Pakistan or India, he's a blind follower of the Hanafis. If you meet a guy from Malaysia, he's blind follow Shafi'i. Somalia, he blind follow Shafi'i. He's from Sudan, blind follow Maliki. No, don't think like that, because there are people from those countries who, alhamdulillah, who they don't agree with that, and they don't accept that ideology or that concept. They understand, they have common sense, and they understand that, well, Islam really is following the Quran and the Sunnah and what we find from the authentic hadith of the Prophet ﷺ and what the Salaf, the Sahaba, understood. There are people, it's in every country, all those countries you name, I know people from all of those countries you name who are not blind followers of these madhahib, Yeah. So don't stereotype people like that, don't stereotype people. But yes, yeah.
That's how they form.
Yeah, they try to, yeah.
That's how they form in terms of to have kind of uniform.
Yeah, they want uniformity and so forth, and yeah. But like we mentioned before, like Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu, he said al-jama'a ma wafaq al-haq wa in kunta wahdak. He said the jama'ah is what agrees with the truth. Okay, unity and the majority or whatever you want to look at it like this is whatever agrees with the truth, even if you're one person by yourself. It's not about numbers. All right. So the important thing is the search. There must be this zeal and this desire and if you will, eagerness to find the truth. And there's a narration from the Prophet ﷺ that I used to hear some of the scholars, like Shaykh al-Uthaymeen and some of the other scholars, Abdurrahman bin Nasir al-Sa'di in one of his books in Usul al-Fiqh, he mentioned this narration where the Prophet ﷺ said, Al-haq dalatul mu'min, that the truth is the lost object of the believer. Okay, where the truth is the lost object of the believer. فَحَيْثُمَا وَجَدُهُ فَأَخَذَ بِهِ. For wherever he found it, then he takes it. So the believer, wherever the truth he finds it. Now this hadith, Shaykh al-Albani graded it unauthentic. It's a da'if, a weak hadith. But بِنِسْبَةِ لِلْمَعْنَى, as Shaykh al-Uthaymeen used to say, al-ma'na sahih, the meaning of it is correct. Even though it's questionable whether the Prophet actually said that. It's not confirmed from the Prophet ﷺ. And some of I've heard scholars using it as an evidence. But the great scholar of hadith of these times, Nasiruddin al-Albani, Muhammad Nasiruddin al-Albani, he said it's weak. But the meaning is correct. That the truth is the lost object of the believer. That's true. That wherever the believer finds the truth, that's our goal. Our goal is to ghaya, with the thing that we're seeking, our madh-hab, the thing that we want is the haqq, the truth. Okay. Evidence of that is the hadith of Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, where he was coming, and this hadith is in Sahih al-Bukhari, where he was protecting, the zakat al-fitr. Okay, and so he was protecting, he was put in charge of looking after the things that people brought before Eid al-Fitr. After Ramadan, people were bringing ahead in advance their zakat al-fitr, which is food. Zakat al-fitr means food stuff, not money, it's food. Okay, so in other words, the zakat you're supposed to pay at the end of Ramadan is supposed to be in food. It's not supposed to be giving money. Okay, so in the time of the Prophet, they gave food. All right, so Abu Hurairah was put in charge of what? When people would bring their food to the masjid. Prior to the Eid, in preparation, so that they would have it paid or give their zakat al-fitr before the Eid prayer, so that they would be considered, the obligatory zakat for them, to pay it on time. So Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu was put in charge of watching it. And so one night someone came and was rumbling through the stuff, trying to take something, and he caught them, and he told them, I'm going to take you to the Messenger of Allah, turn you in for stealing. And the person, begged for him, mercy, please, have mercy upon me, pity me, I have a family, blah, 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 blah. And so he said, okay, I'll let you go. So he let the guy go. The next night, he was watching the zakat al-fitr. The guy came back again, trying to take stuff, and he caught him again. And so this same thing happened for 3 nights. And finally he said, this is it. I'm taking you to the Messenger of Allah. It's over. I've given you 3 chances, and you still keep coming back taking stuff. So the man said, look, if I tell you something that will be a protection for you from the shaitan, all right, throughout the night, and shaitan will not be able to harm you until morning comes. If I tell you this, will that be sufficient for you to let me go? And I'm paraphrasing it, And so Abu Hurairah was like, yes, yeah, I want to be protected from shaitan, of course, So the man told him, recite Ayatul Kursi before you go to sleep. The ayat of the footstool, ayat number 255 in Surah Al-Baqarah. He said, recite it before you go to sleep, and shaitan will not be able to approach you, will not be able to harm you while you sleep until morning, okay? And so he let the man go. So the next day, he went to the Prophet and told the Prophet about what happened. Okay, and the Prophet ﷺ, he told the truth. Sadaqa wa huwa kadhub. He told the truth, but he's a liar. And he said, do you know who your visitor was? Your dayf, your za'ir, this dayf of this guest, do you know who your visitor was, Abu Hurairah? He said, no. He said, it was shaitan. That was shaitan. Okay, so shaitan told him the truth. He gave him some haqq. So Abu Hurairah, a person can say, well, I'm not going to take anything from shaitan, but he told him the truth. So yeah, the Prophet said he told the truth. This is the truth. What he said is right, even though he's a liar, but this thing he said is true. So this goes to show you that a person may be a deviant person, a person may be a liar, a person may be a sinner, But, you know, if they say something that's truth, we affirm their truth. We reject their evil, but what comes from them that's truth, we accept it. We don't reject it just because it came from someone I don't like, you know, or he came from a country I don't like, or he looks like or something I don't like him to look, or something. No. If it's the truth, it's the truth, okay?
Right now, it seems very clear, but this thing is very subtle, and that's what's happening all over.
Yeah.
Because people do not accept the truth. They do not want to change it.
Yeah, that's how people are. But, you know, you make dua, you know, you can't, you know, we can't force people. Like Allah told Prophet Muhammad in the Quran, he said, Lasta alayhim bi musaytir. He said, you are not someone who has power to force anybody to do anything, Muhammad. Lasta alayhim bi musaytir. You can't force people to do things. So, you know, like Allah told Prophet Muhammad, ma'ala rasuli illa al-balagh. Allah said, there's nothing upon the messenger except for to convey the message. So all we do is we convey the message, and we make dua to Allah to guide people, and we leave them, you know. They're Allah's abid, they're Allah's slaves, not ours, you know. These are Allah's creatures, you know. And people, you know, some people, they choose to follow their desires, you know. Some people, they want to follow what they want to follow. They want to follow their hawa, their desires, and their shahwat, their lusts and what have you. So, and they choose that over guidance. There's a verse in the Quran where Allah says, وَمَنْ أَضَلَّ مِمَّنْ اتَّبَعَ هَوَاهُ بِغَيْرِ هُدًى مِنَ اللَّهِ. Who goes more astray than the one who follows his desires, leaving off the guidance of Allah? Who is more astray than someone like that? Man adalla, Allah says, who is more astray than that? Someone who chooses to follow his desires without without accepting the guidance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So some people are like that. That's how Bani Adam is. So, you know, we ask Allah to guide those people. But the reality is, the correct thing is that we seek our evidence from the Quran and the Sunnah and the understanding of the Salaf meaning the Sahaba and their students, okay? Another statement from Abu Hanifa moving forward, he said, if I have made a ruling which contradicts Allah's book or the Messenger's hadith, then reject my ruling. Okay? So that's showing he's not telling anyone to blindly follow. He's saying, if I say something that goes against what's in Allah's book or the hadith of the Rasul then he said, reject my ruling. Don't take it. You know, don't take what I've said then. Okay? And another narration, he said, إِذَا صَحَّ الْحَدِيث فَهُوَ مَذْهَبِي. إِذَا صَحَّ حَدِيثٌ فَهُوَ مَذْهَبِي. He said, if a hadith is found to be authentic, then it is my madhab. That's my madhab. Okay? Meaning, so even though Abu Hanifa may have said some things that you may look now and you find that, well, Abu Hanifa ruled this way, but in Bukhari and Muslim we see the Prophet said do it a different way. Okay? So he's saying, okay, if that hadith is authentic, maybe it didn't reach him. Okay, maybe it didn't come to him in his time, okay? Or maybe it reached him in a way that he thought it was unauthentic, okay? Abu Hanifa heard hadiths too from people. And maybe it reached him from people who he did not consider reliable, okay? So he said, well, I'm not going to act according to it because he considered it unauthentic, all right? But if it was found, had other routes of transmission that reached other scholars that was authentic, and they ruled according to it. So Abu Hanifa is saying, if you find the hadith to be authentic, then that's really following my way, because my way is I follow the authentic hadiths, you know. If he understood the hadith was authentic, he would not reject it, you know. All right. The next in order of sequence was Malik ibn Anas, and Imam Malik. And he has a statement where he said, verily I am only a man, and I err, and at times I am correct. Therefore thoroughly investigate my opinions, and take whatever agrees with the book and the sunnah, and reject whatever contradicts them. Okay? So once again, Imam Malik, radiallahu anhu, rahimahullah, is referring people to what? Al-Kitab wa Sunnah. Follow the book and the Sunnah. Whatever is an agreement with them of my opinions, then take it. If I make an opinion that you see contradicts those two sources, then he said reject it. He said reject whatever contradicts the book and the Sunnah, the Quran and the Sunnah. All right? And he also said each of us refutes others, and each of us can be refuted. Okay? He said each of us refutes others. Kulluna rad. Okay, each one of us refutes. Okay, or mardud, and each one of us can, is refuted. We can be rejected. Our opinions can be rejected. Okay, he said, "Illa sahib hadhi al-qabr, illa sahib hadhi al-qabr." He said, except for the man in this grave. Wa ashara bi yadihi nahwa qabr an-nabi, and he pointed with his hand towards the direction of the grave of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Because where was Imam Malik living? He was in Medina. He was teaching in the Prophet's masjid his whole life. So the Prophet is buried in the house of Aisha, which is right there at the masjid, okay? So he said, everybody refutes others. Everybody can yurud ala akhirin, yani. And everybody can be refuted, Yuruddu alayhim al-akhirun. Other people can reject them, okay? So you can say something, and I can say, everybody has their opinions. I can say something, and we can argue about it. And you can say something, and we can argue about it. But if the Prophet ﷺ says something, no one has the right to argue about what the Prophet ﷺ said. It has to be accepted, all right? And this is a point. This is a point. Another point showing taqleed is not accepted. You know, everybody is human beings. Everybody puts on their, as we say, we put their pants on one leg at a time. You know, everybody has to get up and make salat, make fajr, and get up. You know, make wudu. I mean, we're all humans. Nobody's floating around here on carpets and stuff. You know, all right, and glowing like a crystal magical ball or something. All right, and this went for them. Those a'immah, those imams, they considered themselves. To be human beings, okay? They were not malaika, you know, yamshuna ala al-ard, you know, angels walking on the earth or something like this. Ma'asumun, you know, infallible, having an isma, infallibility. The infallible source was the book of Allah, the kalam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the statements of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and the authentic hadiths. Now, the next was the Muhammad ibn Idris Ash-Shaafi'ee, rahimahullah. No.
Difference between the people that collected the hadiths and the madhhabs?
Okay, that's a good question. Excellent question. She's asking what is the difference between the people who collected the hadiths, which we talked about that in the past. We've talked about these, the muhaddithun, okay, and the imams, the a'immah of the madhahib, al-fuqaha, the fiqh madhhabs, okay. The difference is, in some instances, there's no difference because some of the fuqaha were muhaddithun. You know, some of the muhaddithun were fuqaha. Some of the fuqaha were not muhaddithun, and some of the muhaddithun were not fuqaha. Okay? So sometimes there was a difference, and sometimes there is not. I'll give you examples. Ahmad ibn Hanbal, who we mentioned, Abu Abdullah Ahmad ibn Hanbal, rahimahullah, the famous imam of the Hanbali madhhab, al-Hanabila, we say. Okay? He was a muhaddith, okay? He was a great scholar of hadith. He was considered an imam of hadith sciences in his time and after, okay? Even so much to the extent that as I mentioned to you all before, one of his teachers was Imam Ash-Shaafi'ee, okay? Imam Ash-Shaafi'ee was a teacher of Ahmad ibn Hanbal. And Imam Ash-Shaafi'ee said to Ahmad, when Ahmad was his student, he said, "Ya Ahmad," he said, "you are more knowledgeable than hadith than we are. So if something comes to you from the Messenger of Allah that's authentic, inform us about it because you know more about the hadith than we do." This is the teacher talking to his student. Ash-Shaafi'ee saying to Ahmad, "You know more about hadith than we do, you know. So if you know something about, if I say something and you know a hadith that contradicts it, let me know so I can rule according to that, you know." So Imam Ahmad was a great scholar of hadith, and as I mentioned to you all, his hadith collection, Al-Musnad, is the largest collection of hadith that exists. Over 30,000 hadiths in that book, okay? But he was also a fuqaha, he was a jurist, he was an imam of fiqh also, and that's why people followed him in his reference to his rulings that he gave regarding jurisprudence, regarding fiqh, okay? When you talk about Abu Hanifa, Imam Abu Hanifa, he was considered a faqih, of course. He was considered a faqih, okay? Even some of the scholars of the past in his time said he's the faqih al-fuqaha. He's the fiqh scholar of all the fiqh scholars. He's like the man in fiqh, okay? Abu Hanifa. But when it came to hadith, he was not considered a muhaddith. He was not considered a scholar of hadith. And it is mentioned that his madhhab, the Hanafi madhhab, that school of Islamic fiqh jurisprudence, is based on hundreds of hadiths, a number, just 100, maybe like, you know, between 300 and 600 hadiths or something like this. I forget the number. But it's not his madhab was not based on a lot of hadith. His madhab was based on a lot of ra'i and ijtihad, a lot of, you know, deduction, analytical deduction and qiyas and things like this, more so than hadiths. Okay. And so he was criticized a lot by some of his contemporaries. Even when you talk about the muhaddithun, the scholars of hadith who specialized in ilm al-hadith, a lot of them criticized Abu Hanifa very, very harshly, you know. And also, there's a book that is written, that was written by one of the contemporary scholars of these times. He died in 2002, or no, 2001. He died in 2001. Muqbil ibn Hadi al-Wadi'i, he's a scholar of hadith in Yemen, rahimahullah, he's deceased. But he wrote a book exposing, or basically presenting the statements of the A'immatul Hadith, al-Muhaddithun, the scholars of Hadith of the past, of the Salaf, showing their criticisms of Abu Hanifa, you know, and particularly regarding narrating Hadith, saying, you know, reference to his, you know, his narrations and so forth like this, you know, criticizing him in a negative way, you know. But in fiqh though, Abu Hanifa was, you know, very well respected in fiqh, you know. But in hadith, no, he wasn't, okay. So you will find that some people were, like I said, some of those imams, they were strong or prominent, and they stood out in the science of fiqh, but maybe they were not considered so highly when it came to hadith studies and hadith sciences, okay. And you find some that were strong in hadith, but they were not considered fuqaha. You know, they were basically collectors. They just compiled hadiths, but they didn't have a fiqh madhhab, you know, people following them in fiqh, in jurisprudence. But they were more so collectors and compilers of hadith, okay? And then some that did both, okay? All right. So of these A'immatul Arba, these four, Imam Malik and Imam Ash-Shaafi'ee and Imam Ahmed, the latter three were all considered of muhaddithun. They were all considered muhaddithun, you know. Scholars in that area of hadith, the sciences of hadith. Abu Hanifa was not considered that. Okay. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam, Allah knows best. But that was a very good question. In reference to Al-Imaam Ash-Shaafi'ee, Muhammad ibn Idris Ash-Shaafi'ee, he said, there is no one amongst us who has not had a sunnah of Allah's messenger elude him, or had one slip his mind. So no matter what rulings I have made, or fundamental principles I have proposed, he's talking about usul al-fiqh there. He said, there will be things in them contrary to the rulings of Allah's Messenger, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Therefore, the correct ruling is whatever Allah's Messenger said, and that is my ruling. Okay. So he's saying, you know, he's saying that I'm going to say things. I have fundamental principles I laid out, talking about an usul al-fiqh, and I have ahkam, judgments that I've given regarding different masail, different issues. But he said there will be things in them contrary to the rulings of Allah's Messenger. Al-ashya' allati tukhalif aqwal al-nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They're going to be things, you know. So he's letting it be known. I mean, everybody's going to have something, rules, say something, and have an opinion about something. But a sunnah of Allah's Messenger didn't come to him about that thing. So he rules according to what he knows. He didn't know that hadith, so he can't rule according to what he doesn't have knowledge of. As the scholars say, فَاقِدُ الشَّيْء لَا يُعْطِيهِ. Someone who doesn't have something, he can't give it to others. So if he doesn't have knowledge of that, he's not going to be teaching according to it. He's going to teach according to what he knows. Okay? But if he's saying, but however, so he said, no, that there will be things that I say that's going to contradict the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. But if you find the authentic sunnah of the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, then whatever he said, that is what is correct. That is what is sahih. Okay, that is what is correct. So therefore, take what Allah's Messenger said, and he said, and that is my ruling. That is my ruling. Ultimately, meaning my ruling is follow whatever is authentic. Even though I may have said something that's not authentic, because I didn't know what was authentic. But if I knew it was authentic, I would have ruled according to it. You know, that's what he's saying. If I knew that, I would have followed that. I wouldn't have said this thing that's different, you know. So Imam Ash-Shaafi'ee also, he said, the Muslims are of unanimous opinion, okay? He's saying that the Muslims have ijma' al-Muslimun. The Muslims, you have an unanimous agreement. They have ijma' about this issue. That one who comes across the authentic sunnah of Allah's Messenger ﷺ, it is not allowed to disregard it in favor of someone else's opinion. He said there's an ijma' amongst the Muslims. The Muslims have unanimous agreement. This means la yujid fihi ikhtilaf, la ikhtilaf fihi. There's no difference of opinion about this. That if someone comes across an authentic sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, something authentic from the Prophet ﷺ, Allah's Messenger, it's not allowed, la yahillu lahu, it's not permissible for him to disregard it in favor of the opinion of someone else. It's not halal, it's not permissible to do that. And there's no difference of opinion about that. This is a statement that it slaps the issue of taqleed right in the face. This is something that, I mean, this is coming from one of these Imams that these people blindly follow. The Imams themselves are saying it's not permissible for you to blindly follow anyone's opinion if it contradicts Allah and His Messenger, what Allah and His Messenger said. It's not halal, not permissible to do that. And he also said, exactly as Abu Hanifa said, إِذَا صَحَّ حَدِيثٌ فَهُوَ مَذْهَبِي. If a hadith is authentic, found to be authentic, then that is my madhhab, that is my school. And Imam Ahmed, the latter of them, the last of them, he said, Ahmed ibn Hanbal said, do not blindly follow my rulings. He said, do not blindly follow, a taqleed al-a'ma, don't make blind following of my rulings, nor those of Malik, nor those of Ash-Shaafi'ee, nor those of Al-Awza'i or Athawri. Rather, take your rulings from where they took theirs, meaning the Quran and the Hadiths. Okay? So he's saying, go to the source. These scholars were ruling and teaching according to what was in Quran and Sunnah, what they knew from the Quran and Sunnah. So look there, look at their sources. Don't blindly follow what they said. Okay? And he also said, the opinions of Al-Awza'i, Malik, and Abu Hanifa are simply opinions. They're simply ara, they're simply opinions. And to me, they are all equal. But the real criterion for right and wrong is in the Hadiths. Okay? The real criterion, the furqan, the thing that distinguishes what is al-haq min al-batil, you know, the sawab min al-khata, is what is in the authentic hadith of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And Imam Ahmed, he also said, "Man radda hadith an-Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam," whoever rejects a hadith of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then he is on the verge of destruction. Then he is on the verge of destruction. So these statements, and these are just a few statements, there are many more, but these statements from these Imams strike at the very heart of Taqleed, blind following, which has as one of its fundamental aspects rejecting the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ in favor of the opinion of a madhhab, of a school of thought. That is what is at the heart of Taqleed, is to reject the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ in favor of the opinion of a madhhab. Okay? So next, we're going on. So that is all that we have to say about the fuqaha and Tarikh Madhhab al-Islamiyya, the history of the Islamic madhabs. Next, we're going to go into a biography of our author, who is Al-Imaam Muhammad ibn Ali Ash-Shawkaanee. And in the slides, if you all have copies of the slides, there's a book there that, actually I added another book. It may not be in the slide that you all have because I added, I think, after I sent the PowerPoints out. But one of the, where you can read about the biography of Al-Imaam Ash-Shawkaanee, because we don't have time to go through his entire life history biography. So I'm going to just briefly go through some highlights of his life. But if you want to read in-depth biography of the life of Muhammad ibn Ali Ash-Shawkaanee, Al-Imam Ash-Shawkaanee, there's a book entitled Revival and Reform in Islam, The Legacy of Muhammad Ash-Shawkaanee, by Bernard Haeckel. It's a biography of Imam Ash-Shawkaanee. And then there's another book called The Biography of Imam Ash-Shawkaanee. May Allah have mercy upon him. And both of these books, I found them online. You can order them online. They're available in English to give the more comprehensive and complete look at the life of Al-Imam Ash-Shawkaanee and who he was. Okay? So who is Al-Imam Ash-Shawkaanee? This is what we're going to start off, what we're going to talk about now. So he is Muhammad ibn Ali bin Muhammad bin Abdullah Ash-Shawkaanee, Al-Imam Al-Allama Al-Mujtahid, ولد في 28 من شهر ذي القعدة سنة 1272 و100 هجرية في بلده حجرة الشوكان. So he is Muhammad, the son of Ali, the son of Muhammad, the son of Abdullah Ash-Shawkaanee, the Imam, the great alim, the great scholar, the mujtahid. And we talked about what a mujtahid is, a scholar who's qualified to make ijtihad. He was born on the 28th of the month of Dhul Qa'dah, okay, in the year 1172 after the hijrah of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, in his city which was called Hijrat al-Shawkan. And Hijrat al-Shawkan is a suburb or a place that is on the outside of Sana'a, which is Sana'a is the capital of Yemen. Hijrat al-Shawkan is a small village, if you will, or area outside of Sana'a. Okay. So, Nasha bi Sana'a, he grew up in Sana'a in the care of his father. He was raised by his father. Okay. وحفظ القرآن وعددا كبيرا من المتون والمختصرات. Okay. And so he memorized the Quran and he memorized a great number of books, scholarly books. The mutun, we said mutun, metan is the text of a book. Mutun are textual books. Mukhtasarat are abbreviations, summarized books. وقرأ على والده الفقه شرح الأزهار كما قرأ أيضا على السيد العلامة عبد الرحمن بن قاسم المدائني والعلامة أحمد بن عامر الهدائي وآخرهم شيخ شيوخ الفروع أحمد بن محمد الحرازي الذي لازمه 13 عاما وتخرج على يديه. So he says, so he was Imam Ash-Shawkaanee, in reference to his knowledge. He grew up under the care of his father. He memorized the Quran, a great number of texts. He studied the book. He studied the book of fiqh called Sharh al-Azhar. Sharh al-Azhar. Sharh al-Azhar is a fiqh book that is famous in Yemen. It's famous in Yemen, particularly in central Yemen, in the northern parts of Yemen. It is considered a book of Zaydi fiqh. And we talked about Al-Imam Zayd ibn Ali a couple of weeks ago, that he's the Imam of the Madhhab that's known as the Madhhab al-Zaydi, the Zaydi Madhhab, which it has as its seat or its place of prominence is in Yemen. It's not found really in practice other than in Yemen. Okay? And Zayd ibn Ali was a descendant of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ through the Prophet's grandson Hussein, through Ali, the Prophet's cousin, and Fatima and Hussein. He was a descendant of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. Okay? And Zayd ibn Ali, we talked about him before, a couple of weeks ago. We talked about how he, in his life, he was living in the area of the Hijaz, but some people in Iraq, they wanted him to come there, and they said, in Kufa, they said, come here, we will support you. You rightfully, in his time, they said, you rightfully should be the Imam of the Muslims, the Khalifa, in other words. Okay? And so some of his contemporaries, they told him, don't listen to those people because these people are Rafida. Okay? Rafida is a word they used back then for the Shiites. These people are Shia, they're Shia, So they told him, don't go to them, don't trust them, So Zayd, he went, he didn't listen, and he went. And when he arrived there, those people who were saying they were going to support him and they were going to give him the bay'ah to be the Amir al-Mu'mineen, they were discussing with him, talking with him, and they found out that he did not make sibab of Abu Bakr and Umar and Uthman. They found out he did not curse Abu Bakr, Umar, and Uthman. And these people, they believe Abu Bakr, Umar, and Uthman were murtaddun. They made a riddah from Islam. They left Islam. They were kuffar. This is how these people thought. And he said, no, how could I curse them? They are the best friends of my great-great-grandfather, the Prophet ﷺ. I will not curse them. We love them. They are ashab Nabi ﷺ. They are the friends of my great-grandfather. And so when he said this, they left him, they abandoned him. They said, this man is dal, he's not the Imam that we were thinking, And so they said the real Imam instead is Ja'far al-Sadiq, who was his nephew, They said, he's our Imam. So this is where Al-Ithna Ashriyah, or what's called Al-Ja'fariyah, okay, the Shiites that follow the Ja'fari sect, or they call the Twelvers, Al-Ithna Ashriyah, we say. That's where they came from. They were people who they were trying to follow Zayd ibn Ali, and Zayd ibn Ali rejected their aqidah. He said, this aqidah is corrupt. No. And so when they found that out, they left him and they said, no, well, the real Imam is this other guy then, Ja'far al-Sadiq. And that's why they're called al-Ja'fariyah, because they chose Ja'far over Zayd. Okay, you understand? And so that's where the historical split came. So these Shiites that you see in Iran and Iraq, they're Ja'fariyah. Okay, these Khomeini and all these followers that's Ithna Ashriyah. Okay. But so what happened was they abandoned him, and only like about 400 people remained with him. And when the governor in Kufa found out that those people had abandoned him, he sent his army and they slaughtered him. They killed him and those who were with him. Now it's time for Salah. So inshallah, we're running out of time. So that was just a brief history of what happened with Zayd ibn Ali. So that book, Sharh al-Azhar, we're going to conclude with this. And inshallah, next week we'll finish with the biography of Imam Ash-Shawkaanee, and we'll start with the Bab al-Tahara in the actual book. But this book, Sharh al-Azhar, is a fiqh book that contains the ahkam al-fiqhiyya of al-Madhhab al-Zaydi, the Zaydi Madhhab, the fiqh laws of the Zaydi Madhhab. And Imam Muhammad ibn Ali Ash-Shawkaanee, he began his studies studying that book, Sharh al-Azhar, this book of Zaydi fiqh. But he didn't remain upon that. And inshallah, next week when we continue, we will see how he developed and how he left the blind following Taqleed of this madhab of his people. They were Zaydiyah. He left this Taqleed and he became an Imam in fiqh, an Imam of hadith, an Imam in aqidah of Ahlus-Sunnah wal Jama'ah. He left these some corrupt ideas that are held with the Zaydiyah. So we will start with that. Subhanaka Allahumma bihamdika wa ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Inshallah, we prepare for salah now. And for those of you all who